Lecture 3. Ah, sheer hell. Important hell, but sheer hell.
Righto, let's get going. That technical problem is my problem rather than anybody else's, so I do apologise. We're up to part 3, strategy, and we're going to have a look at how to analyse a market strategically. And to do that strategically, you do a market analysis, a competitive analysis, an environment, and then SWOT analysis. So we'll take it one step at a time. The market analysis is first. So I showed you that diagram in the first lecture where we go and do all 4 of these analyses. If you look here, I'm just going to focus on those things first, which is the market size and trend, the volatility and profitability of the market. So let's have a look at how to analyse the market. And the size is really the revenue of the market. Market size is usually described as the revenue per annum. Now, the trick is you've got to work out whether you're in a global market, a regional, a national, state or local market. In the case study, something I've set you with Apple, you've got to work out what market you're in, maybe which countries you're in or whether you're competing globally. What helps you define it, when I go into a business and start asking the questions, I ask them, where are your customers located, who are they, and where are your competitors located? They start to define what market you're in, whether you're in a small metropolitan market or you're competing nationally or globally. I guess some companies I deal with say, oh look, we're so big, we're the market leader, and then they start getting fat and happy because they're such a big player and they're such a market leader. Usually what I say is, well, let's redefine the market then. If you're a market leader at a state-based level, let's redefine it to be national. And all of a sudden their 60% market share at state-based goes to about 10 or 15% market share on a national level. And that starts, or stops making them fat and happy, and starts making them think about growing and expanding. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is work out your addressable target market. Where exactly are you competing in that case study, and then figure out the size of that market. Let's just take Australia as a country and look at the market size for Australia. There are 229 countries in the world. Australia is 17th out of that 229. We're the 17th largest for the economy. We're the 6th largest land mass. But where we fall down is we've got a very small population, and there's another 50 countries that have got a larger population. By revenue, Australia, if you double count, Australia is doing about 3.5 trillion in revenue. The world's doing about 77 something trillion dollars in gross domestic product or revenue. If you take out the double counting, it's about 1.4 trillion. In revenue. So that's what the Australian economy is. That's how big, or the market size of the Australian economy. Which sector do you think is the largest in Australia out of those 17 that we discussed last week? Mining, do you think? No, it's up there, but let's just blow that chart up. The banks and finance and insurance companies in Australia are the biggest by revenue, followed by manufacturing. Although manufacturing's small in terms of number of manufacturers left, and also it's a declining market, it's still a big revenue producer from Australia. So we're getting out of that old economy of the old industrial age, moving into that information age, but it's still quite a big sector. And then all the trade sectors, which is wholesale and retail, they make up the 3rd biggest sector. So it's a pretty important sector. When you hear about retailers being down, we monitor it very carefully because it makes up a big chunk of the Australian economy. Now, people talk about tourism. Hey, that's the largest industry in the world, and it is by far. But I just showed you the banks were the largest. Where would tourism be here? Which sector? Yeah, it's in services, but where? Which one? Personal, yeah, it'll be here, won't it? Accommodation, hotels, would it be here? Airlines, absolutely. It's also retail and travel agents. When people say tourism is the largest sector in the world, it's in all of these sectors, and that's why it is the largest, because they gather a whole bunch of different sectors. It's poorly defined. Tourism's quite poorly defined, but it does employ a lot of people, and it's in a lot of these different sectors. So that's why this 17 division sort of ignores tourism, but it is aggregated together there. Now let's have a look at the trend, your market trend. The growth rate for all of the 464 industries in Australia, it's growing at about 0.8% per annum after you take the average of all of the industries in Australia. So it's growing about 1%. And growth rates really depend on the life cycle stage that you're at. And we talked about the life cycle last week. You can see here, there's this was taken a year or two ago. There's the technology life cycle curve. You can see what's in decline. Televisions and mail and pop and exchange and Gmail, they're all in decline. Blogging, etc. What's in maturity? There's the iPhone and a few other technologies there. The Android. What was in the growth phase was Twitter and the Amazon Kindle. Introduction, it's not even on the chart yet because there's so many technologies that are in introduction. So I guess if you're looking at that cumulative product life cycle curve, it's pretty flat there. Low growth at the introductory stage of the life cycle. As you go up, the curve gets a lot steeper, so it hits high growth. Then when you get to maturity, it then backs down again to low growth, and then finally you get to negative growth in decline. So that's the way the life cycle curve looks. So out of the 464 industries, how many do you think are in the introductory phase? What sort of percentage? Take a guess. For introduction. How much? 60? Yeah? 0% are at introductory stage. Sorry? Yeah, minus 60, yeah. The reason is all these little emerging industries haven't got their own category or their own class yet, their own industry division. They haven't been classified yet. There's such a lot of them. For instance, one of the newer ones that have been classified is an ISP. What was the ISP grouped in with before it's got its own classification now? Okay.
Telecommunications.
Within telecommunications, absolutely. Why telecommunications? So it then got big enough to then be classified. So as these little emerging industries get larger, that's when they're classified. So that's why there's nothing in the introductory phase. About 17% of those 464 industries are in growth phase, and about half are at maturity in Australia, and indeed the world. It's not just an Australian thing, it's the world too. And about a third of them are in decline. So they're the older industries that are dying. So let's have a look at which industry is growing fastest, do you think? Mining. Everybody keeps saying mining, and you'd be wrong, but you're close. Electricity and the utilities. Don't forget, it's market size is defined as your revenue, which is revenue price times volume. Because of increasing prices, that's growing very quick. That's growing at about, what was that curve? That's about 6 or 7%. 6 or 7%, so that's quite high growth. Mining, absolutely, there's increasing demand from Asia at the moment, so that's in high growth. Construction's there. Also, the baby boom is coming through, filling up the hospitals now. They're all getting sick and dying. So that's why that's in quite high growth too. Let's have a look at the other end of the curve, low growth. You can see the old industries. Manufacturing's declining in Australia. The farms and forestry and fishing are in decline. Wide telecommunications, definitely in decline. It's in negative growth. The GFC hit the finance industry, so that's also in decline too. And all of our trade, our distribution industries like retail and wholesale, and also education, technology is impacting that. Yep.
What would mobile technology classify as?
Mobile technologies in this communication sector, yeah. But in communications, and then, the 464, there'll be wide, and then there'll be mobile. It's got its own separate category. Mobile's probably growing quite quickly, but
Wired's declining, and wired's a lot bigger than mobile, and so that's why you've got that negative growth. Yeah. If you want, you can go into the little diagnostic and key in mobile and see what it's growing at, and see what's in those categories. Yeah. So that's our trend. Now, profitability of the industry. If you look at the economics of the industry, look at its profitability.
Profitability of each industry is influenced by the market, the environment, and also the competitive influences. And that's what we're looking at today. What's the most profitable? Go on, give it to me. Absolutely, yeah. Mining. Let's have a look up here. That's what's that scale there? That's up at around 25-30%. Mining's definitely the most profitable, and that's why the government has imposed a super profits tax, or is trying to impose a super profits tax on the mining industry, because it can withstand it. It's very profitable. Electricity and water and these utilities, that's why we're imposing a carbon tax there, not only to clean up the industry, but it can withstand it because it is very profitable. Construction's also quite profitable. So let's have a look at the ones that aren't making money. Down here, the government's running a deficit, so it's negative profit at the moment. When it gets into surplus, that turns into be positive. Education's there, but public schools are in there with universities and high schools. We run public schools not to be profitable, but for a service. So that's fairly low in its profitability. Yep.
Would government administration be fluctuating a lot?
Yeah, it does. It depends on whether you're running a deficit or whether you're running a surplus. It's all over the place. When you have a look, it's fairly constant as far as volatility. I'll show you the next curve. I'll show you whether it goes up or down a lot. I think it stays fairly constant. Other governments, when we have a look at Greece and a few other things a bit later on, you'll see they're all over the place, but ours is fairly constant. The trades down here, retailers and wholesalers don't really add much value. All they do is they grab a product and pass it through the distribution channel. They don't add a lot on the way, so that's why they're not that profitable. They're not adding that much to the product or the service. That's a bit about profitability. Now, you asked about revenue volatility. That's how the revenue oscillates from year to year. And a very volatile market goes up and down by about 10% from year to year. A moderately volatile market goes between 3 and 10. And a stable market stays pretty constant. It oscillates hardly at all. So the most volatile, again, you probably won't know this, but let's take it. Here, it's mining again. The farms are volatile because of the weather, whether we have natural disasters or not, flooding. Mining's volatile because it's very much dependent on other countries like China, consuming resources. And construction is also very volatile. It goes up and down. And our government loves the construction industry. Why? They employ heaps and heaps of those little necessity entrepreneurs, the plumbers, etc. And the government can turn the tap on and off on that construction industry by just altering policy. Like they put out what was it, the first home buyers grant. They throw that out, all of a sudden the construction industry booms. It means employment booms. If they want to slow the economy down, they can turn the tap down. Now, houses should have been built in factories years ago, but our regulators and a whole bunch of influencers don't want them being built in factories. They want control over the big employment sectors, which is that. And that's the government's favourite sector of control. Unfortunately, though, if you're a civil person in the construction industry, it means you can go through booms and busts. You went through, or the industry went through a massive boom, and then it attracted all your attention. So now you're all. Who's a civil engineer here? Pretty much everybody, yeah? Yeah. So what's going to happen is the government's going to turn the tap off. When you're ready to start being employed next year or so, you won't have a job. Yeah. So that's the only thing that they forgot to tell you. Let's have a look at. But it's not all bad. Just hang on a minute. It's not all bad. Let's have a look at the low volatility thing here. See this? That's constant. Education. That means all the civil engineers can't get jobs. Stay in university, do research and education. Yeah. That's pretty well constant. Also, we all get sick and die, and that's fairly constant too. So there is a career in constructing graves. And government admin too. It's pretty. You asked about government admin for Australia. That's fairly constant too. It's a low volatility sector. So let's have a quick look. I don't know. Has anybody got their PCs on? Yeah. You want to have a go at that? I'm in the diagnostic, and I've selected under market, we've done the product and the service. I'm now under strategic analysis, market analysis, and market description. Is everybody booted up that wants to do this? Okay. So immediately you see over here the Australian market. Where did those statistics come from? Market. So what does that say there? I can't read it. 5 billion, is it? Market size 5 billion. What's that say?
3%.
3% growth. It's in growth phase. The market profitability is 7-ish%, and it's fairly stable. Where's that all come from? How did the diagnostic know that? It's come from the statistics, but where have you got that on your screens?
Yep.
Yeah. How did it get that?
Was it industry feed?
That's it. Remember we did that industry classification last week? That's where the stats come from. Now, I'm just showing you Australia. You've got to figure out your addressable market. In the Apple case, I'm just going to give you Australia. Apple doesn't just compete in Australia. They compete in other countries too. So you've got to work it out for your market. And it might be a lot bigger. So you need to do a bit of research and reading and reading some case studies. Anyway, I keyed into this screen, the market size, and you might as well do it in yours. You just keyed in 370 million there. Because that's for the total transport and storage market. That's for the total warehousing storage market in Australia. I was just interested in self-storage. We're looking at self-storage. So I worked out it was 370 million from a bit of competitive analysis. The market growth was growing at 10.5%. So for the total storage market, warehousing storage is 3%. I worked out for self-storage, it's 10.5%. The market life cycle, what life cycle stage do you think self-storage is at? Maturity? Yeah, with that sort of growth at 10.5%, is that still maturity? Yeah, I selected growth for that. And the profitability, again, I did a bit more research, and the profitability is about 5%. I put in 4.9% there for the profitability. And then the revenue volatility, I just selected, it's fairly volatile, it's more this way. So I looked at the past, the Self-Storage Association gave me most of those statistics, and over the past 5 years it was up and down a bit, so it was quite volatile. Particularly they were adding a lot more storage facilities to Australia, that's what made the volatility a bit more volatile. And then I hit save on that, so click save. If you wanted to now, can you click your market attractiveness chart? Can you see there's a few more bars there now? Yeah? Who's got a few more bars? Yeah? On your attractiveness chart? What we've got there is market size. That's fairly favourable. Anything, if you've got about 500 million for your market size, that's really favourable. Anything less than that, it starts becoming quite unfavourable. If it was only about 10 million, it would be very negative there. So market size at 370 million is pretty favourable. The market growth, it's growing at 10.5%. That's quite good. Remember, what was the average for Australia for all the industries? About 0.8%. So market growth at 10.5% is good. The profitability for the industry at, what did I say profitability was? About 4.9 or something percent. That's quite poor profitability, so it says it's quite unfavourable. And the revenue volatility is fairly poor too. So it kind of gives you an indication on how attractive the market is just on raw statistics. If we clicked on market size too, do you get a chart like that? Yeah? Yes or no? Yeah. The chart, you may not have the organisation revenue in yet, so that may be why you haven't got it. The market size, what it'll do is, my current year is at 2002, so it'll show a market size of 370 million in 2002, and the growth rate was 10.something percent, 10.5%, so it'll work out the growth rate for the market too, and where the market size should be by 2006. Now in the business plan, what did I write? All I did was I right-click on that market size chart and copy it into the business plan field. This is the business plan text field. So if you clicked on business plan and went down to market size there, it's just a way of writing. And when you're doing your case study, you do your diagnostic first, and then you write the case study in the business plan fields. Put the text there. So let's have a look at what I've written there. The market size in Australia and New Zealand, as of 2002, was 370 million. There's 500 odd storage facilities. The market size in the US is 27 billion, 28 billion. And the market in Artarmon, where we built the storage facility, is about 6.5 million. So there's 7 storage facilities in Artarmon. So I'm defining 2 addressable markets. One is the national market, and the other one is just in Artarmon. And I just copied that chart into the business plan field there. Now, the next thing I talked about was the market trend there. So I click on market trend, and I put a few more things in another chart in there. What do I talk about there? I said the saturation in the US for storage, self-storage space, is about 0.36 metres squared per head of population. And they've got 32,000 storage facilities over in the US. We've only got, how many did we say we had? Storage facilities? About 503, yeah. So we've got a bit of room for growth here, as against 32,000 self-storage facilities in the US. Also, our saturation is about 0.07 metres squared versus 0.36 metres squared in the US. So we could grow about 5 times more to just get to the US saturation, and they're still growing. So I estimated the growth's about 11% in the growth phase. Here's the US saturation. They've got about 0.36 metres squared of storage space per head, and we've got about 0.07 or something. So we can grow about 5 times more in Australia for self-storage. So we're definitely still in the growth curve. Now the market economics, if you click on economics there, I cut a table into that field, and I just explained it. I said the self-storage industry, about 4-something%, 4.9% is marginally profitable. What happens is people retire, they get a redundancy paycheck, they invest it in a property like a self-storage facility and run it, and they basically pay themselves a wage. What they're doing is just keeping their wages being paid. When do they make their money out of the self-storage facility, do you think?
Selling the business? When
they sell the business. It's a property play. What you do, most property plays, and most franchises like McDonald's do this, it's all about property. They don't give a stuff about the hamburgers. They learnt this from the Catholic Church. Forget about religion, that just pays to acquire church properties. Yeah? And so self-storage is exactly the same. You just use the money to pay for the storage facility, and you make your money when you sell the property at the end. That's where you make your money. The only problem is, if you've got people that are just paying wages for themselves, it keeps the profitability down, and unfortunately the industry is pretty marginal. I got that from the self-storage facility. I included that in the business plan field. The income, or the revenue for self-storage, you get about $174 or $175 per square metre per annum as revenue. They're all the expenses per square metre per annum. So it's profitable. It's making about $105 per square metre per annum per year. Is that a good business? Would you think? If that's the revenue coming in, that's all the expenses. Is that a good business? Yeah. There's one expense that I have not included here, and the self-storage industry didn't include it because it's quite variable. Which is the expense that's not there? The major one for the self-storage industry. Have a look through. There's wages there. I can see employee costs as wages. That's a big one because it's retail business. Employee costs are there. For the space, absolutely. Yeah, your occupancy costs, like the actual facility itself. Where's either the rent or the fact that you bought it? Yeah. Now, if you put an occupancy cost in there, that comes out at about $100 in there. You're only making about $5 per square metre per annum. It's sort of a marginal business. It's not a very nice business to be in. And revenue volatility, it was quite volatile because they were adding a lot of new facilities in Australia because it was in the growth phase, so it made it quite volatile. So that's the market analysis done for self-storage. Let's have a look at the competitive analysis now. And the competitive analysis is this bit there. Yeah, so we'll leave that. Where we're looking at the supply chain and also the competitors here. Now, there's your supply chain across the horizontal axis. Yeah. and then the emerging, and then the competitive chain is there. There's your emerging competitors. You can call them entrants. The other name for that is entrants. They're competitors that are not actually here yet, but they're coming. And the indirect competitors, that's the other class of competitors. I call them substitutes as well. That's the other name for those. And I guess let's have a look at suppliers. For self-storage, what do you need? What's your supplies for self-storage? What do you need? Security, yes. What else? Cleaning? Power, utilities, yep. Space itself, the building itself. So there's really two phases here for self-storage. You need some land and buildings, and that's the development phase. And as I said, this self-storage, the reason I'm analysing it, it's actually a civil engineering problem that we confronted a bit later on. We'll find out about it. And then when you're operating, you need to get some merchandise like boxes and padlocks and things, a bit of unskilled labour, some power. That's the production phase of self-storage. So you've really got two major phases, the development phase and the production phase. Where do you think you could save most of the money if you were smart in running one of these facilities or creating one of these facilities? Which phase would you say you'd save most of the money on? In the development, yeah. If you're smart about, as a civil engineer, how you build it and what you do in that development phase, you can actually make this phase very profitable. Yeah. Is the industry profitable? How much were they making about? About 5%. So that's our challenge. By being smart, we got that up to about 60% from 5, by being smart in the development phase. So I'm just on the diagnostic there, and I selected under competitive analysis. So I'm working my way down. Under suppliers, competitive analysis, I select suppliers. Let's have a look. Have we got a lot of suppliers of land and buildings and all those things, or very few? Got lots of land and builders, or very few of them? We've got heaps. Lots of suppliers of land, lots of suppliers of lots of builders, etc. Now, what's that? Differentiation of supply. Are they commodities, or land and builders a commodity, or are they highly differentiated? Pretty much a commodity, yeah. So I selected it over there. Is it easy to change suppliers or very difficult? Do you think it's very difficult? Could you not pick up the phone and just shop around between builders?
Between builders,
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy to swap and change. And do you think builders and landholders would want to integrate forward and become self-storage facility owners themselves? Unlikely. So I've selected unlikely there. And if you clicked on the market attractiveness chart, we're working our way down now. We've done the first 4. We've also done the service differentiation. Now, supplies, very favourable. There's not really an unfavourable influence there. So that's what the market attractiveness chart is saying for us there. Now, let's take the business plan. We'll see what we did there. I clicked on the business plan tab and worked my way down to suppliers and described them. And let's see what I've put here. I've just listed all the things in a table of what we need to provide to have this self-storage facility going. That's the production phase. We need cardboard boxes and those sort of things, some insurance, electricity. And in the development phase, this is where we need to construct the building, roller doors, internal walls, personal computers. We need the land itself, fire systems, security systems, climate control systems, etc. So most of it, most of the expense is here in that development phase. So what do I say here? Well, once you've built the facility, the running costs are really labour and electricity, and there's really not much you can do about that. If you really want to get smart, do it in the construction phase. And I listed the construction industry as having about 21% gross margin, about an 8% operating margin. So maybe if we get smart, we can squeeze the supplier a little bit, build a smarter facility. And then I've clicked on here the competitive influences. What do I say here? The major purchasing decisions are in that development phase. So that's where we've got to get focused. when we're building the facility itself, we've got to figure out how to save some money. So that's all we wrote about the suppliers. Next is customers. Now, let's have a look at the life cycle impact on customers. Initially, down here at the introductory phase, customers won't have much idea about the cost structure because they're purchasing the product for the first time. As you get further up towards maturity, you have repeat customers and they get smarter about purchasing. An example of this is when the IT industry started doing outsourcing. Most of the initial customers for outsourcing were in Canberra. All the federal government decided to outsource to EDS and to IBM and these big outsourcers. About 10 years ago, during the introductory phase, most of the federal government departments got ripped off by these large computer companies. But when it came 2 or 3 years down the track and they started to become repeat customers, they didn't get ripped off as much because they started smart sourcing. They got smart about how they did that. So as you go further up the life cycle curve, the customers get smarter. Which markets do you think the customers are really strong in? Would you say? Do you think of any examples where the customers have got a lot of influence? Retailers, that's the strongest market, absolutely. What are retailers doing to the poor old suppliers or manufacturers?
Screwing them?
Absolutely, yeah. Woolies and Coles are screwing. And what are they doing? What's even worse it started back in the UK in about 15 years ago when I was there, and now it's really taking hold here in Australia. Their own brands, the generics, yeah. So that's what's happening is Sainsbury's did it about 15 years ago in the UK, where if you go into a Sainsbury's store, it's like a Coles store. You can only buy Sainsbury's goods. You could not see any other brands there. The only category where they had individual brands was wine. And I think even now they don't have individual wines. It's all Sainsbury's wine. So when you've got their own generic brands, the poor old manufacturers just got to lie down and sell it to them, and it's really hurting their margins. It's squeezing their margins. Now, you can't be all things to all people when you're marketing. If you try to please everybody, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So the way, if you're a small business, to get selective about your marketing is to figure out who you're selling to or target your market, segment it, instead of being all things to all people. And I've given you about 5 ways here to segment your market. Most businesses may choose, maybe 1 or 2 ways of segmenting the market and then focus on that. You don't do all 5, you just choose maybe 1 or 2. Let's go through self-storage and we'll do that in a minute. If you do it by usage rate, not everybody is equal. Pareto was a social economist in Italy, and he said 80% of the wealth resides in 20% of the population's hands. Yeah. What is it now? That was back in the dark ages when he did that. What is it now? How much? It's about 95% of the wealth resides in how much of the population's hands? About 5%, yeah. But that's Pareto's 80-20 rule. 20% of customers account for nearly 80% of the revenue and the profits. So about 18 months into this self-storage business, I took a chart and I showed the top 100, 200 customers here, and then they had 1,000 customers doing about 1.9 million in revenue. See the top 200 do about, 1.3, 1.4 million in revenue. That makes up, if you cumulatively add that up, that makes up about 80%. So of the 1.8 million revenue, that 1.4 makes up about 80% of the revenue. So can you see how the top customers account for most of the revenue? See how these D-class customers down here account for virtually nothing of the revenue, yeah? What do the D-class customers give you? It's the same as students. What do they give you, the D-class customers? They account for 80% of what? Your problems, yeah. Your problems or irritations, yeah. So, and it's the same, honestly, it's the same with students. So if you look at customers, I'm going to take that table there. The top 100, 45%, and then 32%. So there's 45%, there's 30-odd%. If you cumulatively add it up, so you get to 80% very quickly. The top 20% of your customers produce about 80% of your revenue, and then it tails away very quickly. What a lot of companies try to do is turn that chart into that. They try to spread their top 200 customers further out, so there's less risk. If you lost one or two of these customers here, then you're losing quite a big chunk of your revenue. If you've got a more spread curve, then it's less risky. But in marketing, that's what tends to happen. The A's are called the loyals. The top 20% are called the loyals. And what you want to do is demographically really understand who they are. Also psychographically understand who they are, because you want to go and get some more of those. The B-class customers are called the switchers. I use those to do market research and find out why they're buying off competitors, because they're switching all the time, so they're a good source of information. And the D-class customers, I try to get rid of. They're non-users. I'll give you an example of these D-class customers. There's a Willoughby real estate agent called RT Forsyth. Anybody know Forsyth real estate agent? Up in Willoughby? No? They've had 6 generations of family going through that real estate agent. They've also had 6 Lord Mayors of Willoughby, because it seems to be what they do. They get in and they get to know all the people there, and then they become the Lord Mayor. When they opened up that real estate agent, it was back in the 1800s, that's how far back, Sydney Harbour did not have a bridge. It had a punt that went across between North Sydney and the city. What was on North Sydney was market gardens and also Aboriginals. That's how far back it went. So there wasn't any multi-storey buildings, it was all just farmland. And when I started working with this real estate agent, this young chap, who was probably about your age, had just taken over the business. He was another Forsyth, just taken over the business. He had to raise, I think, about $2 million and buy it from his uncle to keep it in the family. When we started working there, I noticed that the phones are going all the time, but the phones, on the end of the phones were these angry customers. They were tenants. Now, in a real estate business, what businesses are there mainly? There's 2 big businesses. What are they? Sales and rental, yeah? And the phones were being jammed up by all of these angry tenants because he had a lot of bad landlords that weren't fixing lights or fixing leaky taps and all that. And they were firmly his D-class customers. So that bottom 20% of his customers were causing 80% of the problems. What do you think we did with that business? What? Change the number? Yeah. We got rid of the D-class customers, the bad landlords. How did we do that? We what? Got them? No, we charged them a fee to manage for them to manage the business, or their business. We charge them a fee. Now, if they won't change a light bulb and we're charging the fee, what did they do? They went elsewhere, yeah, because they were not interested in paying a fee. As soon as they went elsewhere, the phone stopped ringing. We could then get on the phones and start selling properties and looking for more of these A-class loyal customers. And within 2 years, he paid off the loan and he's moved into a massive warehouse facility now. He's still got his real estate agent, but he's now set up a warehouse real estate agent. And he's grown the business to about 50 people. Yep.
I heard that Australian all switches and loyals.
Australian, sorry?
Most Australian industries are all switches and loyals.
Are they? They switch a lot? Yeah, maybe we've got quite a small business market, a small business mentality where we switch a lot. But I've got to say, in every business that I've seen, you'll usually have the bulk of your revenue coming from a few customers. Yeah, most businesses. So that's usage rate. Demographic profiling is for lead generation. It's for the marketing people. It teaches you where to fish, what pond to fish in. And demographic profiling is all quantitative. So if you're doing it for individual consumers, it might be by gender or occupation or age or religion. They're all measurable. Where would you get those stats from if you're looking for them?
Census?
Absolutely, from the census, yeah. You can also do it by business too, demographically by business. We classify things by industry classification, or you can do it by the size of the business. So that's the different way of doing it. So demographics are very quantitative measures. You'll get them from the Australian Bureau of Statistics or from other census. You can then also look at it geographically too, depending on where you are in a business dictates what sort of products you sell. For instance, if you're up in the snow, you wouldn't be selling surfboards. If you're down near the beach, you wouldn't be selling snow ski gear. It's also important to figure out geographically where your customers are located. You have to work that out for Apple too. Psychographics are important not to the marketing people but to the sales people. It teaches you what bait to use, what the customer's attitudes are towards you and the product, and how to hook them. Not only where to fish, but how to hook them. So I guess it could be done by social class, but whether you're upper class or middle class, by the personality type of the customer, whether they're extroverts or visionaries, by the lifestyle, whether they're adventurous or health conscious. Also, that's another way of doing it psychographically, whether they're innovators or early majority or laggards. So you can do it quite a number of ways. Again, most businesses just pick one or two, not all of them. Benefits. You can split up your customer base on the benefits that a customer derives from a product. For instance, if you're selling it to a family, they're obviously interested in space and easy access and room for the kids. If you're marketing to that segment, you're obviously interested in people that can't afford to drive. If you're marketing to the sports car segment, it's either the high-end sports cars or the low-end sports cars. That's a different segment. They're buying these things for different reasons. The Maybach for the luxury segment, the mid-sized saloon segment, the SUV segment, the four-wheel drive, and the retiree segment. So each of those different segments you can split up based on the benefit that the customer's going to get. Now, when you're looking at customer benefits, what you're trying to do is find the key success factors for the market. Why do customers choose your specific product? And there's usually one or two keys that are important in a market. I've given you tables here of what might be important to customers. There's more things than this. But say for a retail segment, we're in self-storage. What would you say is important? Which of the white words would you say is important for retail self-storage? Value and price for retail is usually very important. Yeah. So for any retail segment, price is pretty important. Anything else?
Location.
What?
Location.
Location's the other one. For retail, location is extremely important. It's got to be near you. Yeah. Usually for a retail environment, 80% of your customers come from within a kilometre of your retail location. Relationships are good for small business if you've got more of a service offering. So it's not just a product, but there's a service combined. And range. This is the big one for retail too. You've got to have a good product range. So usually in most markets there'll be maybe one or two words that are really important you have to address. We've done customers profiling. So what do we do in the diagnostic for customers? If I went down to look at the customers section of the diagnostic, are our customers, don't forget we've got a facility in Artarmon, widely dispersed or concentrated in a certain area? Concentrated? Absolutely. They'll be just in the Artarmon area. Are they purchasing lots and lots of self-storage or just maybe one or two units? One or two units, so purchasing very small quantities. Do they get a benefit or a saving from using it? Yes, they do. Let's see, are there many customers that we're dealing with? So in our customer base, do we deal with just a few customers or are we dealing with a whole bunch? In this self-storage facility, we had a roll of 1,000 customers, so we are dealing with quite a number.
What would be an example of a minimum cost savings?
Minimal cost savings. The benefit that you gain is probably not a cost saving. It will be some sort of like other satisfaction, like a job enrichment or something like that. Yeah. That would be, standardisation of the customer. Do you think the customer requirements are well defined and standardised, or are they all over the place and tailor-made? Standardised for self-storage, yes. Let's see, service saturation. Potential customers, existing users, or are they using it for the first time? they tended to be for the first time. Did the customer know about the cost structure of self-storage, do you think? Retail customer renting the unit? They had no idea. So they had little knowledge about the cost structure. And do you think they, instead of renting just a garage, they want to set up their own self-storage facility and integrate backwards? No way. Yeah. So forget that. So if we looked at market attractiveness, there's really little problem there too with the customers. That's quite good. Yeah. I then clicked on customer share, and here's where you can key in a table. That will already be filled in for you. Where did we get the 370 million from? Where did that come from? That was in that market analysis section when we described the market. So in the diagnostic, you only ever enter numbers once. You don't have to keep entering them in. And then with a bit more research, I keyed in my segment sizes. So for commercial customers, it was about 85 million. And I just keep going down, entering those numbers in, and it works out the share for you. All your market shares, or your customer shares are worked out. If you clicked on your customer share chart, you get that. And then you can just right-click on that and put it into the business plan. So let's see what I wrote about in the business plan for this thing. Let's click on customers description, and I did about 3 pages here. If you scroll down, I kept writing a whole bunch of stuff and putting in charts. So let's have a look what's in there. There's the usage rate profile that I put in. Our A-class customers, our Bs, our Cs and our Ds. I also got from the industry the rental period. That's the commercial customers, the purple bar here. They stay for about 18 months, and then the residential customers stay for about 6 months. So who are the higher users, do you think? The commercial customers, absolutely. They've got a higher usage rate. They stay for a lot longer. So that's the first thing I put into there. Demographics now. 70% of the customers were commercial and 30% were residential in our Artarmon facility. That's because we marketed heavily to commercial customers. If you looked at the industry, almost 70% of that is residential and 30% is commercial. So we were quite opposite to the industry's demographics. If you look at from the Self-Storage Association, the industry for Australia, most of that, 70% is residential, the rest is commercial. The market segment here in Artarmon, 70% residential and commercial, so I broke up that in market size. And then I had a look at some statistics, demographic statistics. Can you see any difference between users of self-storage and non-users? Anything different between those two, the users and non-users? There's age, there's tenancy, there's residence, gender. Anything stands out to you? You've got to look carefully. Anything stands out? Yeah, there's more male non-users than, so there's more female users it seems. Yeah. So that's the only thing we got from that. And I wrote in the business plan, it seems to be a bit based on gender. More females tend to use self-storage than the males. Sorry? For makeup. Well, we'll get on to makeup because I'll ask you a question about that in a minute. Company size. What sort of size companies would use self-storage if you look at that? The small ones, yeah. So that's what I got from those statistics there. So the business type that was using self-storage we worked at was service, about 1 to 5 million, so small business, below 10 employees, located North Shore of CBD. Now you said makeup. The pharmaceutical companies and the toiletries companies were big users of self-storage. Why? Somebody said makeup. Why? Reps on the road. The reps go out to visit the pharmacies or the chemists, and they need locations everywhere to supply them with stock. So they rent self-storage facilities all over the place, go back, work out what stuff they need, and fill up their van, and out they go. So that's why they're using self-storage. A big user of self-storage were these guys. Why would Yellow Pages use self-storage? For all the books. Once a year, those books get distributed everywhere. What they do is they rent the self-storage facilities, ship off all of these yellow pages in pallet loads to the self-storage facilities, and then they go and distribute them to each of the individual businesses and residences. So they were a massive user of self-storage. What do you think about medical services and dental and accounting? What are they storing? Records, yeah, paper records. And also advertising agencies. Another big user were roadies, all the conference organisers. As soon as a rock concert comes in or something, they use our storage facility to store all their gear. Now, building and construction were a big user of our storage facility. They weren't located in the North Shore of the CBD. Guess where they were located? Up in Wyong and Gosford. What are they doing? Because we noticed quite a few of them had postcodes up in the Central Coast. What's going on there? They're storing plant and tools, yeah, and they were our A-class customers. They're working on jobs in the North Shore and the CBD, but they need a location, a big industrial unit to store all of their gear. What does that say to you as a marketer? What should you do? Keep them and do what? Absolutely. Go and do some more marketing up in Gosford and the Central Coast and get more of them. So it teaches you, hey, let's see what our A-class customers are doing and go get some more. So what I wrote in the business plan was, most of these construction guys are about 100 kilometres away, so let's go get some more of those. And they're working on construction jobs in Sydney and the North Sydney. The rest of them are advertising agencies and medical practitioners, accountants, and event organisers, the roadies. So let's go get some more of those as well. So that's what I wrote there. Geographically, that's Sydney Harbour there. There's North Sydney, there's Artarmon, that's where we were. It's a thematic diagram by postcode of where our customers were coming from. The hot points were here. We're also getting them from across the bridge in the CBD because we were doing quite a bit of marketing in the commercial sector there. But is that 1 kilometre away from there to there? Would that be 1 kilometre away from Artarmon? No, that's about 15 kilometres away down in Mod. So if I said 80% of your customers in retail come from 1 kilometre away, what's going on here? How come that's not working? We're going beyond it. What's happening?
There's no other storage facility.
Correct. What is here? Is it industrial land here?
No.
Yeah, very expensive residential land. So the only bit of industrial land is here in Artarmon. There's a bit out at Lane Cove, a bit up at Hornsby. So there were about 7 facilities located here because people would drive beyond that 1 kilometre to get to them. So what did I write about? I guess a good spot to put storage facilities is where there's apartments and townhouses. They don't have any storage space. The retail rule of 80% of your customers are within 1 kilometre is broken because there's a lack of industrial land. There's in fact about 7 storage facilities in Artarmon, and they're all filling up quite nicely. That's again a map of there's the harbour there. That's Sydney. I then took those demographic stats and created a thematic map of the postcodes of where to put the next storage facility. Artarmon was the hottest point on that map. The red is where you should build a facility. That was the hottest point. The next hottest point was here. What's that there? No, not quite. What's that there?
South Sydney.
Yeah, South Sydney. What's in Alexandria? Have you noticed? Yeah, factories and what else? Lots of small residential. And have you noticed the storage facilities as well? Yeah, that's those 2 are the hot points. The third hot point was out here. Where was it? Out Balkan Hills Way. That was also fairly hot. So that's and now benefits. I guess what do the customers really need? They don't like paying rent. They want a low price. They also want to feel safe in the facility. It's got to be clean and well lit, and they want to make sure that their items are protected from fire, theft, and water damage. When we did a survey of the residential users, this is what we found that they really wanted. They wanted security, that their goods are protected from water damage, they're protected while they're in the storage unit. Who's using these facilities mainly? Males or females, do you think? a lot of females, particularly the office workers, going down and getting files and things. So security was pretty important. There's location. It has to be close, so convenience of location was important, and quality too. The cleanliness of the units were important. If you look at commercial users, the location was number one for them. It had to be close to the office. Security was also important. They wanted it only to be accessible by the customers rather than anybody else. They wanted their stuff to be protected, and also price was important too. So the last one that was important was access, to be able to access that unit at any time for commercial customers. So if you look at that, I started to drill down on these key success factors, and they wanted price, good location, security, quality of the storage facility, and the access. The feature of this service was access. So what do I write about here? Competitive influences. I write a very small amount here. That many of the customers are beyond that 3 kilometre boundary. Yeah, that's what I wrote. All right, that's customers done. We'll do, what's next? Substitutes. We'll do a little bit on this and then we'll have break. Substitutes are competitors that are not quite competitors directly. They're indirect competitors. If you don't pay, do you want to ask something or? Okay. If you, they're not quite in your market. So when you're thinking about Apple and its iPod and also the personal computer, you have a lot of substitutes to consider. They're not direct competitors, but they're substitute technologies. And let's just be clear about that by doing some examples. What is the substitute to a newspaper?
Internet.
Radio or internet or television? Absolutely. What's the substitute to an encyclopedia?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, yeah. So that's a substitute technology. What's the substitute to Yellow Pages? All the search engines. Absolutely, yeah. So they're not directly competing, but if you don't watch out, they can wipe your business out, completely wipe it out. What's the substitute to photographic film?
Digital.
Sorry? Digital, absolutely. Substitute to specs, contact lenses or laser, yeah, laser surgery. Substitute to the old video cassette recorder. Sorry? Betamax was part of the old, what? DVDs, yeah, DVDs. What's the substitute to business travel? It's happening now. It's really starting to take hold. Telecommunications, video conferencing, absolutely. That's really starting to take hold now. What's the substitute to the postal service? Internet, email, yeah? So music CDs. MP3 downloading, okay. What's the substitute to fixed line phones? These things, yeah, mobiles. What's the substitute to the wristwatch? Yeah, absolutely. What's the substitute to the street directory? Yeah. What's the substitute to the radio? What's the substitute to the camera? What's the substitute to the PC? Hasn't, I know he's dead, but hasn't he made such a lot of friends? Yeah. He's the substitute to a lot of industries that have been completely wiped, yeah, with one piece of technology. Be careful because you don't see it coming quite often. I was dealing with a company that developed a piece of technology. It was a New Zealand-based company, but they're up in Lane Cove, and they had a piece of technology that allowed CDs to be delivered through Australia Post's letter sorting machine. Australia Post actually bends their letters when they're doing the letter sorting, and he had a piece of technology that allowed it to be bent but not get scratched at the same time. And he developed quite a good business. It was, I don't know, $60 million business or something. And in his business plan, when we were looking at it, he did not even think of the substitute technology, which was online and digital. Yeah, absolutely. You don't need CDs going through the post anymore. He didn't even think about it. Totally won your business out. What's interesting about these pictures here? Where's the substitute? The wheels. Yeah, take a close look at the wheels. What does that kill if that gets going? Your tyre market, your air market, your compressors, your valve technology. You don't need any of them. if that takes off, yeah? So don't just, when you're doing Apple, don't just think of your existing competitors, think of your substitutes, the things that can wipe you out if you're not careful. So a case study and then we'll have a break for 15. Jimmy Wales established Nupedia in 1998, allowing anyone to submit content. Content was approved by academics, well that was a mistake, who followed a laborious 7-step review process. After the first year, using his academics, they published 24 articles. It cost him $120,000 to do that, employing the academics. He decided this is not going to go anywhere. He scrapped Nupedia and then opened it up the next year on a more open manner using these things called wikis. What does wiki stand for? It's an Hawaiian word for quick. Yep. Anyway, it was quick. Within the first month, 200 articles were published. By the end of the first year, 18,000 were published. Around 9.25 million articles have been published on Wikipedia against the Encyclopedia Britannica, the substitute technology of the Britannica, which has 120,000 articles. Today, over 280,000 registered contributors contribute. There are only really 5,000, a core group of 5,000 that are dedicated volunteers. How many do you think Wikipedia employ? How many employees are on staff?
Very few.
Yeah, it's about 5. 5 paid employees against a model of 100 full-time employees in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And you have to pay to get access to the Britannica. This is all obviously free in Wikipedia. It does, I'll tell you about that. One minute. 1 minute? Yeah. The article, when it's published, it's edited an average of 20 times. When they studied Wikipedia against Britannica, Wikipedia contained 4 inaccuracies against Britannica's 3, but by the time they got around to having a look again, most of them were fixed, whereas Britannica's remained. So it's edited and fixed up fairly quickly. Academics don't like it, I love it. So there you go. Obscenities in Wikipedia are removed on average in 1.7 minutes. Now here's the business model. It generates about $1 million in revenue from donations. Have you noticed that occasionally they'll do a donation thing? He's spending about $5 million on all of his servers in operation, so it's not a good business model. He's always starving for cash. He's spending more than he's making. Just to give you an example, on July 7th in 2005 at 8:50 a.m, the bombers got onto the London transport system. The terrorists bombed the London transport system. Within 18 minutes, Wikipedia had the first entry. 2,500 users created 14 pages of the account by the end of the day, which was far more comprehensive than the old traditional news outlets. So again, when you're considering competitors, think indirectly, not just directly. Have a break for 15.
Just like my freaking book, oh God. Exactly.